Salutations, my name is Porter Adelot, and this is the first episode of The Deep Dive. The Deep Dive is a podcast series about marine ecosystems and the researchers that have dedicated their lives to understanding these environments. We want to give a clear and transparent look into the lives of these researchers, their experiences, and what the next generation of researchers might have to face during their studies. For this episode of The Deep Dive, I had the chance to interview California State Long Beach professor Dr. Christine Whitcraft about her background and experiences as a researcher of wetland ecology and coastal ecosystems. Could you please introduce yourself?
Sure. So I am Dr. Christine Whitcraft. I'm a professor in biological sciences as well as the director of environmental science and policy at Cal State University Long Beach, and I'm a wetland ecologist.
Professor, where did you grow up? Can you give me a little bit of background about your upbringing?
Sure. I grew up in the very northeast corner of Maryland. So it's the headwaters of the Chesapeake Bay and a relatively rural county, and sort of definitely shaped my interest in being outside.
It's good to hear. So what was it like growing up?
I feel very lucky for where and how I grew up. I spent a lot of time as a kid doing probably two things. I was a competitive gymnast in my childhood, so I spent a lot of the time as a gym rat, I guess. And then the rest of the time, when it was free, structured time, we, sort of prowled the neighborhood. We had a lot of ponds and streams around, and the combination of the two, one very structured activity and one sort of free running was really nice. And definitely relative to what I do now, that idea of enjoying nature and being outside in it, when someone explained that was a job, that really captured me.
I can understand that. And there's a lot to enjoy about nature.
Mm-hmm.
So where down the road did you decide that my interests kind of co-align on what I want to do?
It sounds a little cheesy, but as a child, I read a couple books that were about scientists. One was about Eugenie Clark, who was a shark scientist. She researched how sleeping sharks cannot swim, because most sharks need to keep swimming continuously to be able to breathe, but they're these sharks that lay on the bottom called sleeping sharks. And that was both, I think, a lesson in really cool science and observation in natural history, but also was that role of a woman scientist. And then I was lucky enough also that, my dad was atmospheric, he's a chemical engineer by training, mechanical and chemical engineer who worked on the Clean Air Act for industry. And so I think he also led that idea that there was environmental protection that you could study. So what sounds cheesy is that for career days in fifth grade is my first sort of remembering that a career that was real, right? I wanted to be a garbage man at some point and a gourmet chef at another point, but those were much younger. In fifth grade, I went to our career day as an ecologist. And I don't think I knew what that meant, but I had a butterfly net and a safari hat. And it basically meant, studying the outdoors. So for me, it cemented pretty early on that A, this was an option, and B, that it was something I wanted to do to study nature and protect it.
That's actually really cool that, it hits kind of close to home with your dad and all that. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I feel very privileged and lucky to have had the people along the way that tell you what's possible.
Yeah, I can get that. If students wanted to or thinking about going into biological sciences, is there any recommendations that you would tell them or let them know?
That's a good question. I think part of it is, when you start out as an undergrad biology major, not every class is going to be your biology class that lets you handle your favorite organism. Some of it's the building blocks that you'll use later. So it's math, chemistry, physics, biostatistics. You'll learn about cell molecular. And I think keeping in mind, at least for, all fields, like why you want to do that these are the pieces that let you be a good biologist later. I think that's really important. Sort of keeping the vision of what you want in mind when you're taking the classes that may seem further off from your field of study. And I think secondarily, the other one is don't be afraid to try it early on. So find a lab you can volunteer in, a club that connects you with other students, a chance to do a paid internship. Those are what also develop your practical skills and let you try it out. I used to think I didn't like microscope work, but it was just that I didn't have the right context for it, right? So before I ruled it out, I was really glad that I had tried it and, decided it was something that I could use.
Thank you for tuning in to The Deep Dive. This is Porter Adelot, and I hope you all have a great day.